Why did I lease? So, well, let's just go back about 6 years, okay? Because I turned in my lease car early this week. So let's go back 6 years. I was divorcing almost 10 years ago, okay? No secret on this channel, okay? He left. That's his right. So he decided to end the marriage. Not all women end the marriage. I know statistics say that, but it's not always true, all right? So he decides to end the marriage, and what I got in the marriage, and I mean truly, the only thing that I got was a 10-year-old vehicle, okay? Was used Lincoln Mountaineer. My entire life, I'm 56 right now, I'll be 57 in July. So my entire life from the ages of 19 to respectively 51. Okay, from the ages of 19 to 51 respectively. I had only bought used vehicles. All right. Keep in mind that my first vehicle was when I was 17, and it was a Nissan B210. No, yeah, it was a Datsun. I think it was by Nissan. Okay. Datsun B210 hatchback. Okay. Like you could repair it literally, at your neighbor's, on your neighbor's driveway. Okay. It was just a real simple, basic Datsun B210 hatchback. That was in the about mid 1980s. I'd always been taught you never buy a new car. This was the rule of everything I've ever been taught. Never buy a new car. Always buy a used car by 3 to 4 years old. Drive it, yada, yada, yada. Okay. I'd done that my whole entire life. And always buy the good brands, Toyota, Honda. Okay. I mean, the big stuff, Nissan. All right. I'd always followed that rule because that's just what I'd always been taught. So let's go back about 10 years. I get divorced. I get a Lincoln Mountaineer, which turned out, I don't even think they make them anymore, and it turned out to be an absolute crap piece of SUV. All right. So you're talking, after I got divorced, I think I pumped maybe six to $7,000 into that car over about 6 years. The interior looks great. The interior was beautiful. The car was just a piece of crap. It's an SUV, but you understand what I'm saying. It was also a V8, seated 8 and all that. I didn't need all that as just a single school teacher. But at the time, okay, it was supposed to be used to haul, my ex-husband's business and crap around and all that stuff. All right. So I had this vehicle I didn't need anymore. Okay. And that was what I got in the divorce. We each walked away with our own debt and stuff and all of that. Okay. And I had been stuck on the side of the road probably more times in that SUV than I had been stuck in from the ages of 20, 30s, and 40s. Because I got divorced, I was about 46, 47. Okay. I had been stuck on the road for everything. Smoke's coming out of the front. All right. That engine check light keeps going on. Well, it turns out that vehicle, the Lincoln Mountaineer, I think especially the one made in 2006, which is the one that I had, because I looked it up, turned out to be one of the crappiest vehicles. It was made by Lincoln, okay, ever, and I don't believe they even make them anymore. I could be wrong, so don't hold me to it, but I don't think they do. And I remember going to my mechanic, and I said, I'm just sick of these payments. This car just takes a ton of work. And he said to me, he goes, these V8 SUVs, he said, you can plan on minimum, he said, 15 to maybe $2,000 a year. Now, here's the thing. People will say, oh man, I took my car 400,000 miles and I didn't have to do crap to it. Okay. I think some of that's a little hyperbolic. Personally, I think they over exaggerate just a little bit, but I will take the word of some people. That's all we had to do is oil, lube, and filter. I'm sure it exists out there somewhere. Okay. But like I said, I think some of it is a bit hyperbolic, but either way, the problem is that I don't know how to maintain a car. See, anything is easy if you have the knowledge, the tools, equipment, and all that to do it. So when someone says, well, all you need to do is just do that oil, lube, and filter yourself. That's great. Do you know how to do it? Because if you don't know how to jumpstart a car, and I've met people who can't do that, and I can at least do that. All right. So, and yes, I can check my oil after someone shows me where the dipstick is. Okay. And I won't discuss the 5 minutes it took to figure out how to open the hood of my vehicle because I kept reaching my hand underneath the hood. I'm like going, I know there's a flappy switch or something here. Okay. So clearly I am not the most mechanically inclined person. All right. So I had to be honest about that. And that was not hard to be honest. That was a very shallow wading pool there. And I had to be really honest. And I had to go, Carrie, you don't maintain your own cars. I don't have the tools, the knowledge, the equipment, the manpower. I can't do it. And one of the things that I guess you could say I figured out, not that it was difficult, is look, the budget that you go on has to match your capabilities. So somebody can say to you, oh, well, get a used car and just maintain it yourself. But if you don't have that capability, it's not going to matter. You don't have the capability to do it. You don't have the connections. You don't have the know-how. So before you make a financial decision based on what other people say, you must first make sure that you have those capabilities to do it on your own. Okay, I can't create a budget, I realized, on a used car if I don't have the technology and the tools and the know-how, and even you have the desire and the will to do the physical labor to maintain that car. So somebody's saying, oh, well, get a used car and, you just need to do this, this, and this. And, it's cheap because the body shop's charging you $200, but the part's only, $75. Just do it yourself. Well, that doesn't do you any good now if you don't know how to do it, right? So one of the things I learned in getting used vehicles is you cannot buy a used vehicle based on what talent other people have to maintain their used vehicle. Okay. When I was married, my ex could maintain the vehicles. He could take an engine apart damn near and put the sucker back together. Yeah. Okay. In the driveway. All right. I don't have that skill and talent. So is that advice of buy a used vehicle and just kind of do most of the maintenance yourself apply to me today? No. It doesn't apply to me. All right. Not in today's day and age. And it never has. All right. The other thing. So staying on track here to the best of my ability. I realized that when it came to my being now on my own, I didn't have a spouse to call and say, come bail me out. Although I've always had AAA. I've always carried some sort of, I just think everybody, man or woman, it doesn't matter. And yes, I have been stuck. I got stuck once years ago. Okay. Probably like 15, 20 years ago on a dark freeway. I kid you not. At 11 p.m. and AAA came and saved me. All right. But one of the things I realized is my car, the SUV. Okay. I'll try to say SUV because I'm talking about the SUV, the Lincoln Mountaineer SUV. It was stressing me the hell out. And I kept it for probably about 3-4 years because I've been divorced for 10. I've been leasing for 5. I use my fingers when I count. Okay. I'm not embarrassed to admit it is what it is. Okay. I've been doing it since I was like 10. So so about the first 4 years, I went ahead and I kept the SUV. And then one day I just got stuck again. And I think it was the fourth time. I wasn't used to driving vehicles that got my ass stuck every 6 months on the side of a road. The vehicle was so bad. And it's not because I didn't maintain it. It's not because we didn't maintain it. Like I said, we bought it used. Okay. And I think it probably had 70, 80,000 miles on it or something like that. Okay. But the appearance was beautiful. So it was not a beat up. I've never driven clunkers, so to speak. I've just always driven very economical cars. Come a couple times to driving a clunker when I was married. Okay. So basically I'd had this vehicle, this SUV, and I was drained. And part of the reason I was drained is I was just going through a divorce. All right. Which is emotionally draining, as anyone who's ever gone through one is. Well, it is for most people. Some people, it's a huge relief and they have a party. I guess it depends on whatever side it is, but that's not the point. So for me, it was very, very emotionally draining. I was also feeling very insecure in the sense that, look, I can't have a car that I can't even take out of Tampa. I could not take this SUV out of Tampa. Here I am. My ass is in a V8 SUV. Looks gorgeous. Was beautifully maintained. It's just the engine didn't run well. It was built poorly. Okay. I was afraid to take it to Orlando, which is like an hour and a half up the road, because I was genuinely afraid I was going to get stuck. So I wouldn't go anywhere. I would only stay in town. And every time I got into the dang car and got it out of the shop, it was like, instead of bringing this huge sigh of relief of, phew, okay, the car's fixed, we're good for at least, maybe a year or two. No, in my mind, it was great. I'm hoping it'll be 4 months before I have to go back and do the shop, before a check engine light goes on, whatever. What was going on through my head is I was tired. I was part tired and I was part scared. I was tired of a vehicle that I felt was just draining my pocketbooks. I was scared because I was divorced and, very alone out here in Tampa, no family out here. And I was very scared, emotionally scared, all of that. I mean, yeah, I have my job and, my friends and stuff like that. But, when I stepped away from work, who do I have to call? Okay, it wasn't going to be Ghostbusters, that's for sure, right? So I realized at that time, 10 years ago, what I wanted more than anything is oh boy, I'm going to hate to use John's terms here in Dave Ramsey, but guys, I wanted to feel safe again. I didn't want a commitment, so to speak, in the sense of, I want to buy a car and it's going to be the car that I drive for 10 years. And I didn't want that. I just wanted my structure back. I had moved out of my house, moved into an apartment. I was dealing with a piece of, crap car. That's what I was going through. And what I really, really wanted was I wanted to feel safe. And my vehicle did not make me feel safe. But at the same time, I didn't want a commitment to anything either. I didn't want a commitment to a car. I just didn't want it. Because I wasn't, a lot of us, when we go through a divorce, we're not necessarily all right in the head right away. Okay. We have to adjust. We have to go through that shock and awe period, yada, yada. And after 4 years of trying to deal with this vehicle and trying to make it work and being very responsible, I'm a very responsible vehicle owner. I always have been, even when my cars were leaking oil, okay, on the ground. But then at the time I was married to someone who could fix that leaking oil on the ground. Okay. I realized I'm not in a position to do that. And I decided, you know what? I just want to solve the problem right now. And the way, excuse me, and the way that I saw solving that problem is I said, you know what? And I worked to improve my credit also. All right. Remember, keep in mind at this time, okay, about 6 years ago, I had student loan debt of $110,000 until it was forgiven in 2022. But at the time, I had a student loan debt. I was still living in my apartment. I had not yet purchased a condo. Okay. But what I needed more than anything was I needed stability. And I remember one day I was at work, and I don't remember why was I thought of this, but I thought, if I could, and I did the math for all the money that I spent on car repairs, I mathematically figured out I could have leased a car for the entire 3 freaking years. Now keep in mind, I've spent about $6,000 in car repairs over 4 years. And I actually did the math because I had seen a lot of lease ads, and I'm like at my age, I'm familiar with leasing to some extent. I'm very familiar with it now, but you have to go back 6 years. Okay. And I literally did the math and I thought, damn, I may not own the car, but I could have leased a brand spanking new car and felt safe. Yes, I am borrowing from John, so feel free to chuckle if we need to. Okay, I get it. And I was just flabbergasted because I'm like, when I sat down, I did the math, and I'm like, holy cow. The $6,000 that I spent on a car repairs in 4 years, that stressed me the hell out. I realized I could have just leased a car. And yeah, I understand what people like Ramsey think leasing is fleecing. But like I said, I'm not here to convince you that what I did was right or wrong. I'm here to tell you the thought process that was going through my mind so that you get an idea and go, okay, now I see. I was so stressed out. And again, like I said, I'm dealing with divorce. I've got a car that just won't stop going to the mechanic. And I have an awesome mechanic. I don't go to the dealership for my mechanics. Okay, I don't. And I said, I would just like to breathe. I know, I feel like I'm borrowing this from John. It is what it is. Okay, John of Dave Ramsey. I said, I would just like to breathe. I know, I feel like I'm borrowing this from John. It is what it is. Okay, John of Dave Ramsey. I said, I would just like to breathe. I know, I feel like I'm borrowing this from John. It is what it is. Okay, John of Dave Ramsey. I said, I would just like to breathe. I know, I feel like I'm borrowing this from John. It is what it is. Okay, John of Dave Ramsey. I said, I would just like to breathe. I know, I feel like I'm borrowing this from John. It is what it is. Okay, John of Dave Ramsey. I said, I would just like to breathe. I know, I feel like I'm borrowing this from John. It is what it is. Okay, John of Dave Ramsey. I said, I would just like to breathe. I know, I feel like I'm borrowing this from John. It is what it is. Okay, John of Dave Ramsey. I said, I would just like to breathe. I know, I feel like I'm borrowing this What I needed, I realized at that time 6 years ago, is I needed stability. I needed to stop the freaking conveyor belt that was going on in my life that was just nonstop turning. It's like, you take one thing off the conveyor belt and then you're supposed to take the next thing. You're supposed to keep up with the conveyor belt like an assembly line. And I just kept going and going and going. And the conveyor belt was going faster and faster and I couldn't stop it. I could not stop it. And I actually remember I was sitting at work and I asked myself, Carrie, what do you need? What could make the conveyor belt stop? What could make it so that you feel like you're in control? Because I felt so much like I was out of control. I didn't ask to have the changes happening that were happening. It's life. It happens. Okay. And I said, you know what I'd really like? I said to myself, I would just like a car that works. That's all that I wanted, was a car that works. I didn't want to own a car for forever and ever. Okay, not that day, that time. I wasn't looking for the car of my dreams. I wasn't looking to impress anybody with a great set of wheels. I still don't look to do that. I just wanted, part of it I wanted to stop was the hurt. I wanted it to stop. And I didn't know how to get it to stop. But I felt like my life was just getting out of control. When people say that leasing is horrible, that it's the most careless way to spend money, I can tell you that it actually saved me. It allowed me to stop the conveyor belt that was just kicking my ass. It allowed me to go, everybody just time. Put me into a car that I can freaking drive without it dying on me. Put me into a car that if I want to drive from here to home in Oregon, I can do it. Put me in a car if I want to go to upstate New York, if I want to go down south to the Keys, wherever the hell I want to go, let me go there. Because having a vehicle that I couldn't drive around in, I felt more stuck than I already feel stuck. You ever feel at times like you're on the same damn street, you're going up and down, doing the same freaking routine and nothing changes. And you want something to change. Leasing a car at the time that I did it, 4 years after I got divorced, and I was now in my very early 50s. It was single-handedly, I believe, one of the greatest things I did for myself emotionally. Because you see, at the time, like I said, I still had a $110,000 student debt. I still had these things. But leasing a car allowed me to just focus. It gave me a sense of reward in the sense that I'm free. I'm not stuck in freaking Tampa with the inability to leave. I can drive away if I want. I can go somewhere else. I can take this car above, beyond 20 miles, from where I live. It was the very first sense of freedom that I had 4 years after getting divorced. You see, something I've learned, what is bad timing or a bad season for one person isn't necessarily a bad season for someone else. It was my time to lease a car. And trust me, when I was 50 and I decided that I was going to lease a car, I remember thinking to myself, I'm breaking every freaking rule that I have ever read about leasing. Leasing is horrible. You're not, if you did this instead of that, if you just bought a car, and did that instead of leasing, you'd have more money. If you put the money that you're going to waste, into 3 years of leasing and you put 10% of that into a mutual fund that gives you 7%, yada, yada, yada. I didn't care about any of that. The only thing that I cared about when I leased was I wanted the pain that I was feeling partly from my divorce. I wanted the pain that I was feeling trapped. Okay. And remember, I had a $110,000 student loan. So I already, to some extent, was trapped. But now I felt even further trapped because I couldn't even drive out of the city because this vehicle just wasn't strong enough. Yeah, it was a V8, but the engine was horrible. Too many repairs. I wanted freedom. I wanted freedom. So I did about a month's worth of research. Yeah, I did. And I used to be a librarian in a little newspaper. Researching is my knack. You want to find out any information? Trust me, I can find it for you. I'm very good at researching. All right. I just wanted the pain to stop. And I wanted a sense of freedom. And I did about 3 weeks of researching before I decided to lease the car. And I mean, when I tell you I researched, and I know I've said it before on this channel for those who may be regular viewers, when I tell you I researched it with an open mind. See, part of what happens is people won't have an open mind to a different financial path than what mainstream media tells them. People won't open up their mind to it because mainstream media said this, because their favorite celebrity said this, because their favorite financial guru said this. Okay, as much as I absolutely love Dave Ramsey, I wish he knew my channel existed. I'm sure he doesn't know it exists. Okay, I'm just a little, pea pod, but that's okay. I'm a huge fan of his, but it still doesn't mean that we have to agree on everything. Because something I learned is when it comes to something like leasing, a lot of leasing, at least for me, it was emotion. It wasn't about the money. See, what happens is when we criticize leasing, we're criticizing it from a financial standpoint. We go, what a waste of money. Carrie, you just made 5.5 years worth of car payments. You could have freaking bought a car. You're right. You are absolutely right. I could have bought a car. But you see, what I couldn't buy was the emotional stability that I needed so I could get a car that I actually wanted. What I could not buy was the feeling of pain that was going on inside of me, the hurt that I had going on inside of me. What I could not buy, even with buying a car that might be considered a better deal than leasing, what I could not buy was the freedom that I wanted to be able to go anywhere. But we're not talking physical. We're not talking financial. We're talking mental. You see, so much of money, you guys, I'm convinced, is mental. Sometimes I think the failure of money or the success of money has less to do with the financial aspect and more to do with the mental. But because we can't get into somebody's brain to see what's going on in their head, and this is reflected a lot in the Dave Ramsey phone calls, it's been reflected in my own life experience. Because we can't see that, we can't put a dollar value on it. But what would happen if I said to you, it was more valuable for me to lease a car for 5.5 years because the wealth that I gained, the self-esteem that I gained was more important to me than anything you could possibly put on a dollar. There was no investment. There was no car you could give me 6 years ago when I leased that was going to take me mentally where I needed to go. So trying to convince me at that time that, oh, Carrie, leasing is a horrible idea. You're going to lose money. It wasn't the loss of money that I was focused on. It wasn't the loss of money that I cared about. It wasn't whether or not I leased a car, bought a car, what type of car. That wasn't my focus. My only focus, especially coming from my past. I was born in an orphanage in Vietnam, where I was severely traumatized. I was concerned about my mental state of health. That's what I was concerned about. I didn't give a crap about whether or not the car I bought was going to, well, if you buy it right now, it's going to have a better interest rate. So why you lease a car? Didn't care about that. You see, if even in the Dave Ramsey calls that we listen to, if I could get inside the mindset, see the mindset that I understand is I understand the mindset of the shopping addict because I lived that for, damn near a decade. But if I could get into the mindset of a lot of these calls, what we would learn, what would be so fascinating. If you stepped into my mind at the time that I leased, there is no way you'd have ever had me purchase a car. Because you would have understood that what I was looking for could not be written out on some freaking contract line about, well, now your payments are going to be this, and you're going to have the car for the next 10 years. You're going to do this, this, and this. That's not where I was at. I needed to sense freedom. I needed mental freedom. I didn't need a commitment. Sometimes the mental ability to know that I can change my mind and leave, that can be worth way more to me in dollars. My mental health can be worth more to me in dollars than the actual dollar bill. When it comes to leasing, there's, to me, a season when things like leasing, renting a car, renting a apartment, okay, there are seasons. There are people who bought houses. If they added up the number of years they rented, was that a waste of money? Was it? What happens if that young person needed to rent for a while? They weren't sure where they wanted to settle. They weren't sure where their job was going to be. They weren't sure, if they would fall in love with somebody in that city, in that place. In other words, the season for them to rent was that time. Would they look back at that experience and go, man, that was a waste of money renting? Now, we are separating. It's important that you understand that we are separating people who are doing things, dealing with what's going on in their head, versus people who are just simply going out and buying stuff. When I was a shopaholic, I was just going out and buying crap. I had a mental illness and I was going out and buying stuff. It was very different, fast forward, to my mid to late 40s when I got divorced. I needed to protect myself mentally. Having a car that was constantly dying was stressing me out so bad. I should say so badly. So I called up Toyota and I said, my credit score is 750, and I had worked to get my credit score up a year earlier because I knew that I decided I wanted to start leasing. You want to start leasing, guys, you really need to get a high credit score. I'm going to say minimum 750. I know they'll take you, I've heard, 670, but your rates aren't going to be as good. I'm going to tell you 750, especially if you want to go with some of these, bigger companies. A 750 score is pretty darn solid. Some, it might not even be high enough. Okay. But just as a bar marker. Okay. So I had started planning about a year before I leased that I would go ahead and lease. And when I hit around the 750 score, I was so proud of it because I had worked so hard to get it up there. I called and I actually, long story short, or in my case, long story long, right? I called and I got pre-approved. And I got into my first Toyota Corolla, not the hybrid that I purchased. I got into my first Toyota Corolla lease. I will tell you that when I got into that leased car, it was the first time I'd ever driven. No, it was the second time. I stand correct. It was the second time I'd ever driven a new car. Because the first time I drove a new car was the Nissan Sentra in my early 30s. And I was stupid. I think I kept that sucker for 3 weeks and then moved up to the Maxima. Couldn't afford it. Duh. Okay. And then lost it. All right. That's not the emotional and mental mindset that this lease came with. So here I am. I finally get into my first lease 6 years ago. Just shy of 6 years ago, because I leased for a total of 5.5 years. I get into my first lease 6 years ago. And I remember calling up one of my friends, and I said to her, if I had known just how free I felt in a vehicle that I didn't feel trapped in anymore, and if I had known that it helped me bring on a new phase of my life, kind of like getting rid of the car from the last relationship. Not say that that's necessary, okay? But in this case, it was necessary because the car didn't work very well. The SUV didn't work really well. I said, if I had known just how good this was going to feel, I said I would have done it the day right after I'd gotten divorced. And what I meant by that was I was finally in a car that I could go anywhere I wanted. That sense of freedom that I was looking for, that I needed, it was like the bars had come down. No, you're not trapped to where you can't even go from Tampa to Orlando, and Orlando's only a stinking hour away, respectively. You can go. You want to go there? Go. I actually had to change my mind. I had to change my mindset about my freedom. I felt like a prisoner who had just finally stepped out of jail. The prisoner goes, I can go left, right, north, south, east, west. Where should I go? It was literally like chains. And maybe it was even part chains of marriage. Who knows? It was like chains had just completely come off. I don't think, if I had to count in my whole entire life, some of the greatest emotional events that I've ever had. Now, I'm not a parent, so I can't say it was, having a child, okay? But as a non-parent, okay, leasing a car, in my experience for my life, stands as the top 2. Yes, top 2 most emotionally changing experiences. Part of it's because of coming out of divorce and dealing, like I said, with a vehicle that just wasn't good, that made me feel trapped. So here I am, I'm already getting divorced. I've already been dumped, so to speak, and it happens. Okay, whatever. All right. I'm in this little apartment, which is even smaller than the 840 square foot I have here. Again, that's fine, whatever. But I didn't feel like I had anything. I didn't feel like I had anything. Okay. And it was routine of going to work, coming home, going to work, coming home. I mean, so I leased a car. And when I tell you the emotion was just overwhelming, it happened almost instantaneously. I'd say within days of leasing a car. And it was the first time I'd ever driven a new car. Ever. I'd never driven a new car. I mean, like I said, aside from the Nissan Sentra that I did for 3 weeks in my early 30s. Okay. But like I said, that was for different mental, emotional reasons. But I just remember literally remember thinking I'm free, and I'm still carrying a $110,000 student loan, but I also knew that the student loan was going to eventually be free. It would eventually, go away as well. And it did in 2022 through loan forgiveness. But when people talk about how leasing is bad and it sucks, if you make your financial decisions only based on the dollar bill, you may find that you're actually leaving out a lot of your mental health in the process. And sometimes to save your mental health, you may have to spend more. Dave Ramsey, on the Dave Ramsey show, they call it the stupid tax, when sometimes you got to break a CD or whatever because, you got to pay the stupid tax to get rid of this bill. Because it deals with my mental health, I don't like to call it the stupid tax, but let's just call it that if that helps people to relate to it. Sometimes you got to pay that bill. You got to pay that extra cost. But if in paying that extra cost, it helps you solve a mental health issue that is eating at you, does the price of what it takes to do that, does it really matter? Would it have been better for me to have spent $500 a month sitting on a psychiatrist's couch? Can I get that money back? Is that a waste? Because after all, you got better again. So was that a waste of money? I didn't need to spend all that money on that psychiatrist's couch. I could have just called my gal pals for free instead. So why'd you spend the money on the psychiatrist's couch? Because there was something there, because I've had a psychiatrist, of course. Okay, years and years ago. Because there's something there that nobody else can give you. There's something there that nobody else can help you with. So you spend the extra money to do it. You spend the extra money to see that health counselor. You spend the extra money to go to that gym that makes you feel a little bit better about yourself. You spend that extra money because you know that in the long run, it's going to serve you 10 times better. Even though it might cost more at the time, you know that deep inside, it is going to serve you 10 times better than if you tried to take the cheaper route. Taking the cheaper route doesn't always work. Why do parents pay buco bucks for their kids to attend private school when you've got passionate teachers like me that teach in public school? It's not so bad if I teach your kid, is it? Is it so bad if I teach your children? Are you rejecting me because I teach public school? You think I'm not good enough? No, you're not rejecting me. And I don't ever feel like you're rejecting me. You're putting your child where you believe is going to maximize their mental health, their physical health, their future financial well-being. Well, what if I told you that perhaps many people, perhaps more than we know, that lease a vehicle are doing it for the exact same reason? Would that change your mind? Does it change your mind to know that I leased a vehicle, not because I was trying to get the best deal on the car, but I leased it because I needed help and I was slipping. I was financially slipping. A vehicle I can't afford. I'm emotionally slipping. I'm breaking. And what if I told you a leased vehicle changed it? It reassured me. Told me everything's going to be okay. It told me to keep driving forward. It told me don't look in the rearview mirror too much. Would it change what you think of leasing a vehicle? Does it change it? It's not always about the money. It's not always about, well, you could have gotten more if you stuck that money in a mutual fund. Yeah, I could be driving off. I could have been in a paid car already. Sure, I could. Absolutely, I could. But you see, that's not what I wanted at the time. It wasn't what I needed at the time. I was hurting. And I needed it to stop. I had no idea when I leased a vehicle that, I mean, if I didn't love Toyota before, hell, I have a Toyota hat now. I actually have a black Toyota hat with an emblem, with the Toyota emblem on it. If I had known when I first got divorced, what I know now about how leasing a vehicle can help improve you emotionally, I would have done it years ago. And Scout's Honor, I've told that to a couple of my very closest and dearest friends. I've gone, if I had known, it was like I was keeping myself in a cycle of hurt and I didn't even know I could get the F out. I didn't even know I could. Stop looking at every financial move you make in your life just based on the dollar. You did not waste time in that relationship if you learned something from it. You did not waste time living in that house if you gained some value out of it. You didn't waste time in that job if it taught you something you didn't know before. You didn't even waste time with that person, even though the relationship didn't work out, if you learned something about you that made yourself better. Leasing a vehicle was one of the greatest decisions I've ever made in my entire financial life. Zero regrets. Zero regrets. And there was much more emotion behind it, behind that lease. It wasn't about the dollar. I think many of the financial things that we do in life, many of the financial decisions we make, we get in trouble at times because there is so much emotion behind it. There's so much emotion behind that house that we were raised in. We don't want to give up, even though we can't afford it. Right? We did a story on that not too long ago on bedtime Chit-Chat story time, right? We get that we get that truck because that truck makes us feel powerful, even though we can't afford it. I was very fortunate I could afford the lease vehicle. I did not lease based on flashy. I leased a Toyota Corolla. As a matter of fact, when I called the dealership, I said, I want you to give me the cheapest Toyota Corolla I can possibly lease. See, I wasn't looking for flashy, and I still wasn't looking for flashy. I mean, come on, guys. I bought a Toyota Corolla hybrid. Yeah, okay, it's a little bit bougie there, I guess. But I still kept it to a Toyota Corolla hybrid, all right? And I literally said to them, I said, I want you to give me the cheapest car that I can possibly lease. Because to me, vehicles are from point A to point B. I don't need to impress you. I really don't. What I wanted, though, is I wanted to go from point A to point B anywhere I wanted to go when I wanted to go. I wanted to be able to take it out of state. I wanted to be able to drive it all the way across country if I feel like it. I didn't want to be limited, and I didn't want it to control me because I felt like so many other parts of my life were out of control. But one of the things that I did was that I made sure that I leased a very, very affordable car. I started leasing for about 4 years after coming out of a divorce, and my finances were just all over the place. You know, I had a SUV that I couldn't afford. You can hear about that from the very first auto series video. I'll link that at the end. That was stressing me the heck out. I had $110,000 in student loans that I knew it was going to eventually be forgiven, but the student loan situation was a mess. Okay, we won't even get into that, but the PSLF, Public Service Loan Forgiveness, was a mess. But I knew that in time, my $110,000 loan would be forgiven. I was in an apartment. The apartment that I was living in had just been sold, and I knew that with, you know, when an apartment is sold, what do? They fix it up, and sometimes they don't even fix it up, but they raise the rent. Hey, hold on, let me turn on the light in here. Hold on, family. Can you see me now? Can you see me now? Okay. All right. So I knew with that, I was living in 675 square feet. And then my apartment rent, just before I left that and bought this condo behind me in 2020, my apartment rent was about $950. Okay. I would like to say that the apartment today, all right, goes for almost $1,700 to $1,800 a month. Yeah. So I dodged a bullet on that one. And someday I'll talk about that because I don't think it was really dodging a bullet. Yeah, I did. But there was a master plan behind all that. But that's for another video on another day. But basically, there were just a lot of things going on in my life. And of course, you know, like I said, I'd been divorced for 4 years. And, you know, I had a few, not many, okay, a few lingering, you know, credit card bills that needed to be taken care of. Nothing that was urgent, you know, because I learned my credit card lessons in my 20s. So the credit card bills weren't what were stressing me out. I had very, very little. It probably wasn't more than 1,000 or so. So nothing overly serious, but it was still debt. It was stuff that was being tacked on to, you know, everything else going on in my life. So when I chose to lease a vehicle, 5.5 years ago, I was in my very early 50s, and I did my research. I made sure that I looked up the pros and the cons of leasing. And I wanted to hear it all. Again, I'm telling you why I think my lease was so successful, because it didn't stress me out at all. I really did my research. I listened to the pros and cons. I talked to people who did lease. Okay. I think one thing to also remember that for a lot of us who choose to lease in our later years, many of us have done the traditional buy a used car route. We've done it. So when someone says, well, you know, you should buy a used car and you should do, you know, you should do this, you're talking to people who, in their late 40s, 50s, 60s even, that have probably already done that. So I had decades of experience in buying a used car. My budget was such that I could never really get a newly used car, like just 3-4 years old. My new to me cars were typically, I'd say, around 6 to 8 years old. Not quite 10, but I would say, 6 to 8 years old was pretty common. Probably had around 80,000 miles or so. But that was typically, the type of car that I would buy. And unfortunately, they just, A lot of used cars have a lot of problems. So when I decided to lease a car, in addition to getting an inexpensive car, I just simply made sure that I had done my homework. And I think part of the thing about doing your homework before you do anything, it gives you peace of mind that the decision you've made is right for you. And I think that's the big thing. You have to, and even with this channel, the tips, the advice that I give people, it's what's worked for me, or it's what did not work for me. And I share that experience with you too, with you also, as you know. Okay. But ultimately, the only one who can really decide is you, because you are the only person that knows your wants, your wishes, your dreams, your hopes, your budget. And if you have, other people involved in your budget, maybe a spouse, a relationship, you have kids dependent on your budget, only you actually know. But when it came to leasing, God bless YouTube. It told me pretty much everything I needed to know. Plus I did a lot of my own reading of articles and stuff, because sometimes, YouTube is great, but let's face it, YouTube is kind of, short and sweet. Sometimes I want more in depth. I know I do read. I'm not the biggest reader in the world. Okay. Don't tell my students that. All right. But, I do read. And when I want information, I want the in-depth stuff. So I really looked at what it is that made leasing fail for people. And one of the things that I realized in my research, the reason a lot of people fail when it comes to leasing, they lease expensive. They go out, they lease the $500, $600, $700, $800 luxury vehicle. They sign up for that for 3 years. Some leases I've heard even go as long as 4. Okay, but for the standard, I'm going to say it's standard 36 months. They sign up. So I knew right off the bat, Carrie, don't make that mistake by signing up for a ridiculously high lease vehicle. Because even though the payments will end in 3 years, you still got to support it. And so in my research, I realized, lots of people seem to lease really, really expensive cars, and then they slam leasing and say how it sucks. Hold on, I got to have my beverage. This is the coconut. What is it? This is the mango drink. It's like a pina colada tropical type by the Naked Company, Naked. It's actually pretty good. I mix it with my smoothies. So that's my tea for today. But one of the things that I did in my research was I wanted to look at what made people fail. Why did so many people hate leasing? And you know what? I'm going to be really, really honest. Most of what I read, aside from leasing is fleecing, okay, was really people just leased vehicles that were too expensive. It wasn't because, that leasing wasn't a good idea for them. It wasn't because leasing might actually work for a period of time for them. Okay. The majority of it was, oh man, I leased this BMW whatever series. Okay. And, it turned out to be $750 a month. And, I wanted to get out of it because the payments were too much. I changed cities, moved jobs, whatever. Okay. So I figured out right away, don't lease too much. Something else to also consider when I leased is, are you going to move cities? You need to find out from your leasing company what will be the requirement should you change cities, should you change states. These are questions and things you need to think of before you just hop into a leased car, because depending upon your lease contract, you may or may not be required to return the leased car to the place of origin of where you leased it. Now, I'm going to say that probably doesn't happen a lot, but again, you don't want any surprises when it comes to leasing. So make sure that, and you may say, oh, I'm settled, I'm not going anywhere. You again have to look at, this is over 3 years. Okay, this is over 3 years. A lot can happen in 3 years. So make sure that when you lease, you find out what the rules are about, okay, do I have to return my lease to you, Mr. Dealer, where I got it from? Do I have to have all my repairs by you, Mr. Dealer, where I got it from? Or can I go to any, and I'll use my case as Toyota, or can I go to any Toyota dealership anywhere in the country and return my lease? Can I have my warranty? Can I have my lease repair warranty done by any place, anywhere in the United States by a certified Toyota dealer? Because you have to remember, you are leasing. It's not the same as when you're buying a car and you go to a non-dealer person to what is it, to work on your car under warranty. I will not take my car to the dealership to have the warranty work done. Oh, heck no. And have somebody trying to upsell me every second. I swear to God, they'll take my car that will only have 5,000 miles on it, and they will find a reason to upsell me. No, I don't, Carrie, don't play that crap game. No, I don't play that. Okay. So I will take it to a certified Toyota mechanic, one that I absolutely love. Okay. But you have to think in terms of leasing. The rules are a little bit different when it comes to that. So I can't tell you, what to do or not do, because that's something you have to deal with your leasing company, the dealership. The other thing is, also, so what do we have here? Don't get yourself a cheap car. Find out what the rules are for having your car maintained, to find out what the rules are to where you can return your car. You're in the middle of a lease, you live in Florida, now you want to move to, Oregon. That's my home state. What am I going to have to do? Does this change the effect of the lease? The goal is you don't want surprises in what your responsibilities are under a lease. And you have to think like a leasing owner, not a car borrower. The two are not the same. Okay. So you have to keep that in mind. Something else that, I think also made leasing successful for me, that I think made it really successful. I chose a company that I could stay with for the rest of my life. And here's why. I'm not saying you have to stay with this leasing company the rest of your life, but I'm just saying, if you're going to lease over multiple cycles, like I leased for a cycle and a half. I was just 6 months shy because I got my new Toyota hybrid just this last week. So about 7 days ago. Okay. 7-8 days ago. What was my thought? Yeah. So I was at the very, very end of my second lease, and I was considering going into my third lease. I'll explain later in another video probably why I didn't go, the finances of it. That'll probably be the next video where I talk about the finances of it. Okay. Because I know everybody wants to know the tea on that. At least that's what I'd want to know. Okay. But so I was 6 months away from that. So pick a company that you would be completely happy releasing from. Don't bounce from lease to lease to lease company, because every time you bounce, you have to pay that disposition fee that can run around $350 respectively for the fee for turning in the car and all of that stuff. Yeah, you might be able to get perks from your new leasing company that will help, minimize that. But honestly, lease from a company that you would be happy to release from, because if you do, not only does it make just the whole leasing process easier, but they'll give you perks. Okay. Toyota paid, for my first lease and my second lease, they paid about 2 months worth of my lease because they gave me literally cash back that applied to about the equivalent of about 2 months worth of leasing. These perks can be very difficult to get. If you're bouncing around. So pick a company that you really, really like, and yep, I could lease from this company 2-3 times over for the rest of my life, whatever. You don't literally have to stay for the rest of your life. Okay. But you get the idea. All right. Also let's talk about the fear that people have of the warranty. Oh my God, if there's so much as a ding or a scratch, they're going to get me on it. That's something that turned me off to the idea of leasing initially. Okay. But again, when you do your research, you'll be amazed. My job in doing my research was, how can I make leasing work for me if I decide to do it? Okay. So I looked up the warranty, wear and tear and all of that stuff. Guys, just buy a warranty. There is a wear and tear warranty that you can pay for. Now, some people say, yeah, but if I don't ever have to use it, again, we're talking about peace of mind. And if you lease, a little Corolla like I did, I didn't lease the hybrid, but I just leased a standard, gas Corolla. Okay. So you might pay an extra $500 on top of it, but it gives you about $5,000 worth of damage coverage. So every little thing isn't nickel and dime. Again, I wanted to lease with peace of mind. That's what I wanted. I wanted peace of mind. They don't tell you, a lot of people when they say, oh, leasing is, they're going to ding you on every little thing. Sure, perhaps if you don't have the warranty that covers, approximately $5,000 worth of wear and tear. And I'm going to be really honest, folks. If your kids aren't sitting in the back seat spilling gum and lemonade, if you're not getting dinged by every car that parks next to you, if you're not backing up into street lights, telephone poles, speed bump curbs, and all of that stuff, we're talking 36 months. You can keep a car, even if you didn't have the warranty. Okay. I think you would be just fine. But in my case, I chose each lease to go ahead and get the warranty. It was probably, and I also got the tire warranty because, again, remember, we're talking leasing. You must put like to like on anything that gets damaged, wears out on the car. Like to like. You cannot go to the tire shop and say, well, we've all done it if we've been broke. 2 tires on the front. They're not quite bald yet, but you're going to put 2 tires on the back and they're going to be new. I mean, you're like trying to, piece together 4 tires so you can drive that will fit your budget. Okay. When you are talking leasing, especially with things like tires, car parts, all of that stuff, you must mandatorily like to like. There is no cutting corners. So to make sure that I gave myself peace of mind when I leased, I went ahead and got tire coverage. It covers the tires and the wheels. It's the equivalent cost of about paying for a tire. Okay, I think it was like an extra $300. They spread it out as part of the lease. If you bust a tire, the first tire that busts, you pay for. Every additional tire, it's on the company. Okay, I used it. I had 2 tires. I had 2 flat tires, one with each lease. Okay. I had 2 flat tires. They took care of it, yada, yada. Okay. But you have to remember, it's like to like. There is no, we're going to cut corners. It's a leased car. So having that coverage on there, again, it's just about peace of mind. And if you are not leasing an expensive car, you're not trying to, show off and act like the BMW is owned by you when really it's leased by you. Okay. And actually, if you're smart, I think luxury cars should only be leased. I don't know why anybody would want to take care of a luxury car. I think that's my opinion. Because even if the car were paid for, I still don't want to maintain a luxury car. Just the bill for maintenance and insurance, forget it. So for me and my budget, if I ever get into a luxury brand car, I'm leasing the sucker. Okay, that's just all there is to it. But I don't really see my budget going there because basically I'm too thrifty. I like to say I'm thrifty. I don't like to say I'm cheap. All right. So anyways, stop worrying about this, wear and tear and all the fear mongering that goes on with leasing. All right. As far as the tires and the, just get the walkaway wear and tear warranty, get the tires. Okay. You might pay an extra $50-$60 a month, but I'm telling you, you could probably get away without the tires, to be honest. Just have a little savings account. If a tire goes, boom, you've got the money to repair it. But, again, I really want leasing to be friendly to me. So in my case, I got them both and I have 0 regrets. And I had no warranty issues at all as far as, walking around and checking it. Because another reason I would get the warranty thing, come on, folks, let's all admit it. And I have done it. I accidentally ran over a parking curb. Ooh, that did not sound good the day I did that. Okay. But it turned out everything was fine. I had them look at it. It was absolutely fine. That would have fallen under my insurance because you have to have comp and collision. And remember, when you lease a car, okay, the warranty is bumper to bumper for mechanical things, manufacturing failure, not because of your accidents and, stuff like that. That falls under your collision, your comp collision stuff. Okay. Get the wear and tear warranty. And it's amazing to me how many videos I've seen that go, oh, they're going to ding you for everything. And nobody ever brings up the freaking wear and tear warranty. All right. Let's see what else as to what I thought made leasing successful. I kind of saved these 2 big ones for last. One of the things that I did during my 5.5 years of leasing, because I leased for 5.5 years, people, I took advantage during those 5.5 years to fix things in my life that weren't going right. I didn't just lease a car and say, well, that's the end of it. I'm just going to lease till the day I die. Now, if I was rich, seriously, if I were rich, I would lease till the day I die. Why do I want to deal with the car even at all? Okay, I would, but I'm not rich. But one of the things that I did is during the time that I lease, during whatever time should you choose to lease, look at it as, hold on. Oh, I just dropped my, everybody hold, just hold on. Hold on. Just, I thought of something. Okay. So one of the things that I did was, I used the time period of leasing to fix parts of my life that needed to be fixed. In other words, I didn't just lease and go, I'm going to go sit on the couch now that I've leased. Meanwhile, in my case, let's use me because that's all I can use. Okay. During the 5.5 years that I leased, let me tell you how much changed in my life. Okay. I went from 675 square foot to 840 family, 840. I went from 675 square foot apartment renting to my little 840 square foot condo. All right. So that was one major thing that I did because I wanted the leasing period to stabilize my budget. All right. And I talk about that in the video. Like I said, I call it the auto series. Okay. In part 1, again, which I will link at the end, I used the time in leasing to stabilize my budget. And this is why leasing on the affordability range, I really wanted leasing to be affordable because I wanted to use it to stabilize my budget because I had gotten tired of continuous car repairs, just nonstop with the used vehicle that I had, which was a V8 SUV. Absolute nightmare vehicle. And it was the only thing that I got in the divorce because we each walked away with our own debt and bills. And the only thing that he covered was this SUV. And I think it had about 2 years worth of payments on it, around $300. And folks, that was it. That's what I got. Okay. But during the time that I leased, I used it to straighten my life up, so to speak. Okay. So one thing I did was I realized that, my apartment had been sold. It was like, whoops, time to get out. And during the 4 years before I had moved and before I had leased, I had saved up about $25,000. Okay. And I used that along, with some inheritance my absolutely blessed parents left to me. Okay, I used that to get into my condo. All right, it wasn't enough to pay the whole thing, but darn near. But I still had about $45,000, $50,000 mortgage that I had to take out. So right there was a major change, and I had already started leasing a car because I started leasing when I was living in the apartment. So major change there. I used that to I guess you could say straighten up my financial life as far as the cost of living. When the apartment went from $950, it is now renting at $1,800 a month. But I got into this condo and my mortgage was very small. And I was able to pay this condo off in about 2.5 to 3 years respectively. So during the first lease, my condo got paid off. All right. What also happened during the 5.5 years that I leased, during this last lease, okay, in 2022, my $110,000 student loan got forgiven because I worked on that. I stayed in the same job. I even stayed at the same school. Now, fortunately, I just really, really happened to work well with my administrators. So I'm kind of like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Okay. So I'm in my 18th year. It's my only teaching job at the same school, but I stayed dedicated to that, loyal, dedicated, yada, yada. Okay. I didn't allow myself to go shifting around. Okay. Too much. Because I knew that holding a $110,000 student loan, for me to get rid of that, I didn't want to complicate things. It's not that teachers can't change schools. You can. You clearly can. But if I didn't have to complicate things, why complicate it, right? So during the time that I leased, I followed the student loan news. And of course, I created student loan Chit-Chat. Yay. All right. So I created student loan Chit-Chat channel and all of that. So that was another big thing that happened during the time that I was leasing. I also was very focused during the time that I leased to get my credit score the heck out of the gutter. Okay. I will be honest. It never went low. I mean, probably, around, low 600. It wasn't in the 500s. I know that, but it was like probably 620 or so. And I knew, I guess you could probably say I was pretty low, probably around 650. I knew it had to get high. Okay. I knew that to lease, I needed to get that score up as high as I could. So during the time, excuse me. So actually before I need to back up, before I started leasing, I focused on my credit score. I made sure I didn't get into additional credit card debt. And again, my credit card debt was very small. It was probably around 1,000 or so. It's not like I had tons of credit cards because I'd learned my lesson in my early 20s about don't get into credit card debt. All right. So, but still, I had debt. I had about 1,000 and I still didn't want it. So I made sure to clear that. I knew that with leasing, I would need a very high score and I wanted it at about 750 and I got it. Okay, I got it. So that was the first lease. I did score 750 or so. All right. And obviously I got into the lease, but all this time during the 5.5 years that I've leased, I have taken care to make sure that I use that stability time by, I have a car and it's got a very clear budget. I don't need to worry about a savings account. I don't need to worry about maintenance. My job is to lease and clean up the other areas of my life. Sweep it up, clean the clutter. I strongly recommend if you choose to lease, understand why you're leasing. What is it that you want? I understood what I wanted. I wanted to, what's the word? I wanted to streamline. I wanted to stabilize. That's the word. I wanted to stabilize my budget. And leasing allowed me to stabilize my budget. Well, wouldn't it be a waste of time to stabilize it and then not do anything? It's like, hey, you've got this car, you're leasing it. You don't have to worry about maintenance. You don't have to wonder what the, bill is going to be, with repairs, especially because I was practically driving a clunker. It didn't look like a clunker, but it sure was built like a clunker because it was always in the shop. Okay. Wouldn't that be a waste? So I knew why I was leasing. I did not just lease because, I just like to lease a Mercedes. No, I knew exactly why I was leasing. I need to get my budget in line. And even though I was, and I was scared, of course, I'm divorced, I'm on my own. All right. I knew that I needed to take this time to make sure that I was doing everything in my power to fix all the clutter going on financially around me. And I also needed to fix the clutter that was going on in my head. Okay. All that negative stuff that was going on in my head. I need to clear that too. Leasing allowed me to do that. Don't lease. If you want to make leasing really effective, lease with a plan. Why is it you're leasing? What do you want the end result to be? What's your outcome? Why do you want it? Now, does that mean you have to overthink it? No, it doesn't mean you have to overthink it, but what a shame to lease for the rest of your life because you only have no idea why you're leasing to begin with. What do you want from it? I knew what I wanted from leasing. I wanted a streamlined budget. I wanted to feel better mentally. That's what I wanted. I wanted to get my life in control. I wanted to take back control that I thought I had lost over the years. All right. That's what I wanted. I wanted to take back that control. So anyways, that's another one. Let's see. We talked about stabilizing budget. One thing that makes leasing successful, another thing I should say, be confident in your decision. Be confident. You're going to get people that will think, well, that was a dumb move. Hold on, everybody, just hold on. I need beverage. I was sipping and I didn't want to sip in your ear. Okay. But here's the cool part. Nobody needs to know you leased a car unless you tell them. Nobody's going to know. So for some reason, you're really shy about telling your people you're leasing. It's like, in the olden days. It's like, oh, we can't tell anybody that we actually color our hair. This is when I was growing up. Okay. The 80s, you did not tell people you colored your hair. Now my hair, this is all natural. 100% au natural. But even if it was colored, I wouldn't care. Okay. For a while, I used to dye my hair black and then my hair got so platinum like this. It doesn't even take the black anymore. But people who do dye their hair, no, we don't care now. There's no judgment. It's like don't dye your hair, whatever makes you happy. Okay. I think leasing, especially in this market now with cars being what they are and stuff, I don't think people, I didn't really personally, I didn't come across anybody who was really judgmental about it, and if they were judgmental, they were smart and kept it to themselves, but I wouldn't have cared one way or another. It's like, lease, don't lease. Dye your hair, don't dye your hair. I don't think that I didn't experience any judgment over it. And I think a lot of it is just, I was confident in what I was doing. I knew what I was doing. And I remember years ago when a student saw me coming out of the laundromat when I lived in my apartment, and I didn't have, a washer and dryer in my unit. And so I would haul my laundry to the laundromat. Yeah, they had like a laundry, room downstairs and stuff by my apartment. But I found it easier to go to the laundromat because I'd like to monitor my clothes and stuff as they're being washed. And, she's like, "Are you poor, Miss Horn?" It's like, "No, I'm not poor." Okay. So, be confident. And I'm going to end it with this one because, I could go on and on. I think the one thing that also, if I had to pick the most important, and I saved this one for last, of course, if I think of other things, I'll tell you in upcoming videos. But the number one thing to me above all those things that I've told you that made leasing so successful for me, the number one thing is I got to end leasing on my terms. And if you watch video number 1, you will understand why that was so important to me. In other words, I came into my own, all right? I came into my own to decide and to discover that, hey, you know what? I don't need to lease anymore. It's okay to stop leasing. It was like, I want you to think of it like this. Leasing was like a tricycle. My life was in topsy-turvy. I needed something with training wheels to help me get through it. I didn't want any more commitments. I had a marriage that did not work. I had a car, my SUV, that did not work. My apartment was getting more and more expensive. It was up to $950, and this is just before the pandemic. And my limit as a renter, I told myself, once it hits 1,000, I'm the heck out. And I kid you not, 3 weeks after I signed for my condo, the entire city of Tampa and the rest of the United States closed. And then my apartment shot up to 1,700. So yeah, I guess you could say I dodged a bullet time frame wise. But all of this stuff was failing around me. The last thing I wanted was to sign on the line to buy, B-U-Y, a car. I didn't want that. And don't forget, in my history, I already had a car repoed before too. So all of this stuff is raining down. I needed something with training wheels or something like that to help me. I needed to get through this time period. Leasing allowed me to do that. It allowed me to fulfill what I needed, but without having to commit to something, because the fear of commitment to a vehicle after watching everything around me just, falling apart. But here's the really cool part, and why I think this is the most important for me. I was able to end leasing on my terms. I came into my own. I grew up. I outgrew the training wheels. What allowed me to come to it on my terms to end it? It was really simple. I realized that the things that I had been afraid of prior to leasing, before leasing, when my life was in topsy-turvy, I realized that those fears that I had didn't exist anymore. Why did those fears not exist anymore? Because just like I said earlier, during the 5.5 years that I leased, I worked to fix different aspects of my life. I was worried at one point that I might not be able to afford rent. That's not a fear anymore. Yes, I have an HOA. Our HOA fee is $455 a month. And that's after we had a minor assessment of $1,800, after we put on a new roof, yada, yada. Okay. With the new Florida laws, and our HOA does not work to make a profit. That is not the goal of our HOA. Our HOA works to break even on a budget and to fulfill the legal things that we need. Okay. Whereas my apartment rent has, like I said, shot up to $1,800 a month. All right. My HOA fee has gone up by $100 a month in the same respectively 4 years that I've been here. I believe I'm in my 5th year. But I realized It was like over time, on my own terms, I came to my own conclusions, and I realized, Carrie, the things that you were scared of, the things that had you leasing to begin with, those fears don't exist anymore. I don't have to be afraid that I can't afford the rent. That fear is gone. I don't have to worry anymore that there's $110,000 student loan and growing hanging over my head, that I came to the conclusion with that I can't ever pay this loan off on a teacher's salary. It will be impossible. Absolutely impossible. And I wasn't willing to put any inheritance towards it because the roof over my head was more important than paying off Sally Mae. I didn't have to worry about that anymore. The student loan is gone. I don't even have to worry anymore that, I would have a car that I can't afford to fix. I can afford to fix it. I can now afford to fix a vehicle because I don't have a student loan payment at about $375 a month. I don't have to worry about a nearly $1,000 a month rent payment. But the key was that I came to that conclusion on my own. The best budget, in my opinion, that a person can have is the budget that they think up themselves. The person that's holding the dollars, the person that's controlling that budget, or if it's multiple people, like, a couple, okay? But the people in charge of the budget, when they come to the conclusion that this is what's best for them, that this is what will help them financially. I came to my own conclusion on my own. Through my own pathway, I came to the conclusion it is time to stop leasing. Nobody forced it on me. Nobody said to me, oh, Carrie, you're just so dumb. You lease. Really, you're going to lease again? As a matter of fact, I was actually on plan 3. I was actually ready to say, let's roll with another lease. And then I would say over about the last half a year, it was like, a few things happen. One is the market conditions. Yeah. Okay. The market conditions aren't great. Definitely not great for trying to buy a new car and you have a really bad credit score. And it's just life. Okay. I've been there. Okay. No shade, not hating at all. I've been there. That's the reason this channel exists. Okay. So I came slowly over, I would say the last year to 6 months. I slowly started coming to the conclusion, like, do I really need to keep leasing? And when I realized that the things that I was afraid of, it's like, I want you to think of it like the monsters in the closet. I want you to think of it like monsters in a closet, and you realize those monsters, they don't really exist. They don't. They came out of the closet and they scared you because you were vulnerable. You felt vulnerable. But when you got your strength and you could fight it back, I know that seems like a dumb analogy, but really that's what it was. It was like all the scary things went away. But I had to do things to make them go away. I could be in the same position right now that I was in 5 years ago, just leasing a car. I could still technically have a student loan. Okay. I could have not followed through on the PSLF forgiveness. I could have changed jobs. That would have taken me out of PSLF. I could have decided that, I'm going to change careers and, drop that PSLF program. I could have been too lazy to try to, cut down budget, so I could afford a condo. I could have wasted an inheritance. I could have done a lot of things that would have changed the picture of where I'm sitting today. But I understood why I was leasing. I was leasing to streamline my budget. And in return, I wanted to fix areas. I didn't want the time that I spent leasing to be wasted. I wanted to make things better. And I wanted to use leasing a car as a way to allow me to focus on other things. I no longer had to worry about a car repair. I didn't have to be scared. And I really, really believe that to me was the single greatest thing about leasing. I ended my lease a week ago completely on my terms and 6 months early. but I ended it on my terms. When you can create a budget on your terms, when you come to understand that the monsters that you see coming at you, coming out of the closet, that keep you awake at night, when you gain the strength, the power, the willpower, the knowledge, the understanding, when you put the research and the time into researching it, because I had to research about leasing. I didn't know a squat about leasing. Okay. I didn't know squat. Oh, which reminds me, I talked to you about the down payment before we go here on this. Okay. Before I close this out. When you can create a budget on your terms because you come to understand why you need to make these changes, and you come to understand that the changes you're doing, the sacrifices you're making are good for you, that is, to me, that is a gift. That is a gift from heaven. If somebody had come to me and said, Carrie, you can't lease again a second time, now I'd be fighting it. If somebody had come to me and said, Carrie, you can't lease the third time, you can't do that, now I'd be fighting it. But nobody did that. I came into my own. And like I said, about a year ago, I started going, do I really need to keep leasing? And I would do the numbers and the math and all of that. But, honestly, it was less about the math as to why I stopped. And it was more about, I'm not scared anymore. I'm not scared. My emotions aren't as flat as a pancake. And it's okay. The things that scared me, the things that I was afraid of, 4 years after, being left, I realized didn't have to scare me anymore. So I spent 5.5 years during the time that I leased to take back every ounce of power that perhaps I had lost. Right? Before I go, I want to talk to you about the leasing down payment and why you really don't want to put down a leasing down payment. Okay. And anybody who knows me also knows, and I've had 5.5 years of this experience, combined with the fact that I used to be an auto insurance adjuster, and I've worked in insurance for 7 years. So really quickly before I close, and if you've made it this far, God bless you. The reason you really don't want to put money down on a car, okay, on a leased car, and I do not recommend paying more than 1 month in advance. That's it. And that's just to make sure your payments are always on time. It's because if you put a lot of money down on a car, hold on, that's Alexa. Alexa, stop talking. I swear, I'm going to get Alexa right here. I'm going to get the big ass Echo Dot and put it right here. The reason you don't want to put money down on a vehicle is very, very simple. If a leased vehicle should be totaled in an accident, any money that you put down is bye-bye. Any money that you put down is completely lost. Hold on, guys. I got to put snacks out for the garbage guy. Hold on. This will be a blip of a pause. Oh, wait, I just remembered I'm streaming this. This is harder for me to pause. All right, I'm just going to keep going here. All right, because we're almost done. Any money that, make sure the mic is on. Okay, yes, it is. Okay. Any money that you put down, you will lose it should the car be totaled in an accident. It's not like where you can go, let's just say, you get this new, you get a vehicle that's leased. Of course, it's brand new. 6 months later, let's say you put $5,000 down on it. It lowers the lease payment. All right. The car's totaled in an accident. Okay. I guarantee you, most likely, the vehicle will have gap coverage. It'll pay the difference between what was owed and, what the car's worth, yada, yada. But you're going to be standing there going, well, what about the $5,000 down? You lose it. Whatever you put down, whatever prepayment you make, in other words, you paid your lease bill early, whatever you put down, whatever prepayment you make, you lose it. Do not put down more money on a car than you absolutely have to get into a lease. You are better off taking that extra money, sticking it in a savings account of some sort, okay, having a higher lease payment, all right, and then just withdrawing from that savings account. Because a lot of times, dealers will say something like, yes, but if you put down $3,000, you only have a $250 a month car payment. That's true. But $3,000 of it was a down payment that came from you. Now, keep in mind, if you have a very low credit score, you may be required to put down a down payment. You may not have a choice. So that's something you need to consider. This is the nuts and bolts of what most people will probably be interested in. And that is why would I basically go from being debt-free to buying a $26,000 brand new car? Okay, why am I willing to go back into debt for that? How long is the car payment? How much? Yada, yada. I'd always been raised with, buy a used car. And long story short, because I think it's pretty well explained in the other two prior videos, leasing really, really changed my opinion about buying a used car versus a new car. One of the biggest factors I think that leasing did for me was that when I would turn the lease car in, I would just be amazed going, I know the entire history of this car. I know every pothole. I know every curb. I know every ding dang dong, okay, that this car has ever interacted with. And and on the first lease, when I turned the car over, to Toyota, because that's the only company I leased through, I just remember after I turned it in after 3 years, I thought to myself, man, I know the entire history of this car. And I remember thinking, whoever gets this car is going to be so lucky because I know the entire history of it. On the other hand, with used cars that I had always owned, I was always like this. Dear God, please let me get a used car that's good. Don't get me one that's on the Carfax title report that says it's been in a crash. Don't get me one where, the person selling it knows that there's a knocking sound on the engine when it gets, 10 degrees cooler outside. In other words, what I found was that by buying a new car through the leasing process like I did, I didn't have to do any of that, pray stuff. I just, it's a new car. It's covered by the dealership for the next 3 years, yada, yada. That to me was very, very powerful in getting me to change my mind about buying new cars. Okay. It was huge in getting me to change my mind. That when I turned in a lease car, I was just like, I know the history. I know where this car's been. I wanted that same comfort with the next car. And I got it with the next car that I leased. The exact same comfort. I'm the first owner. And of course, this second lease, I just turned it in last week. I turned it in 5 months early, in fact. Okay. So that I have to be honest, leasing 2 new cars changed my opinion about buying new cars. And yes, I am fully aware. People say, you lose 20% as soon as you take it off the lot. Yada, yada. Got it. Okay. I've bought used cars my entire life. All right. Used cars. That's what I've driven in. Done it the standard way. The other thing that really changed my mind about buying new cars over used cars. And again, these are just my personal thoughts and opinions. Take them for what it may or may not assist you. Okay. You could totally disagree. And that's cool too. All right. Another thing that changed my mind about leasing cars, in addition to being in 2 new leased cars and knowing their history and all that, is I really, really think used cars are best bought by people who know how to fix their car. In other words, they're bought by people who are mechanically inclined, have the resources, the knowledge, in other words, the person buying the used car is not at total mercy as to whether or not this used car is going to be a dud or not. I mean, not to say that somebody who's, mechanically inclined and knows their way around, an engine, hybrid or not, computer or not. Okay. It's not to say that they can't get frustrated, but I'm sure they get a whole lot less frustrated when they understand the part that's wrong. They understand where to go buy that part. They know how to put that part into the car, for cheap themselves. They can do it themselves, or they got 10 guys at the shop or a gal at the shop, right? Women can work on cars too, okay, that know how to do it when they have that type of access. And I realize as a used car owner, when I own a used car, when I buy a used car and I do the praying of, oh please, make sure it works and all that, I don't have that type of access. I really am fully at the mercy of, is this a dud of a used car that I'm getting? Whereas when I have a new car, okay, there's something called the lemon law. All right. Like the fruit, the lemon law, which I won't get into the laws of it and all that stuff, but it basically, consumers had to fight for it to say, hey, you know what, if a car is a dud and it's a brand new car and it's a dud, you need to fix it. Okay. So there's the lemon law protection. New cars have bumper to bumper for 3 years. If you buy a used car, you might get a year. I bought a used car once and it was a Toyota Camry. And I swear to God, they said, oh, we did this 120-point check. And I think the doorknob or something with the door handle went wrong. And I went, there is no way you can tell me they did a 100-point inspection check and yanked on the doorknob and didn't know that there was a problem with the doorknob. So there was always that skeptical part of me that just doesn't really believe what I'm being sold, okay, or what I'm being told about a used car, and the paranoia that goes on with me in having a used car. And I think people who have the ability to fix their own cars, do most of their own maintenance, or they have really inexpensive access. My dad owns the body shop down the street. My aunt and uncle own the mechanic shop on the other end. Okay. I mean, there you go. All right. God love you. All right. So knowing that I'm really at the mercy of, making sure that the people are giving me honest information about my car, I felt that when I leased 2 cars, those concerns just went away. I really, really think that to become financially debt-free, it's a combination of the mental freedom you have in your head. Do you feel free? Do you feel like you've got it under control? As much as it is the financial end of debt freedom, it's a combination of both. Yes, you might be able to put me into a used car and I might save an extra $2,000 over the life of the car. Okay. But do I feel mentally free? It has to be a combination of both. Sometimes it's worth it, probably more times than we'd like to admit. It's actually worth spending more, okay, to get something that makes you mentally happy long term, where you feel like you can breathe, as John would say on the Dave Ramsey show. All right. So really, those are a couple reasons that over the years, I don't wish to buy used anymore. I want a new car. Now, then the question becomes this: how does a school teacher go from debt-free to $26,000 in a new car? And how the heck am I going to get myself out of it? Well, let me explain to you really simply. I've lived a very frugal life ever since I was divorced. When my ex left about 9 years ago, I think it was in 2013, no secret on this channel. Okay. He decided to leave, and my life was just topsy-turvy in finance. I had student loan, $110,000. I moved into a small apartment, and then I moved into a small condo. Okay. But I was living in a small apartment, 675 square feet. Now I have 840 square feet. I'm moving on up in the world. Okay. I have that. But my life was just basically in shambles at the time. And I really, really told myself that, I didn't want lifestyle creep. That's where the more you make, the more you're going to spend. I told myself, I really didn't want lifestyle creep. So over the last almost 10 years, it's been about 10 years because it's 2014. Okay. Or excuse me, it's 2024. All right. I have really worked hard to make sure that really I don't live on more than what I made when I got divorced. Yeah. Okay. So that was in the low 50s. Last year I grossed. Okay. That means with taxes, before they took taxes out. All right. I grossed 70,000. Okay. 62,000 being my teaching job, and about another 9,000 respectively. I think I'm having a hard time saying this word tonight. I think you get what I'm saying. Even English teachers, we lose what words to say. I grossed 70,000 on my tax return. It might have been 69.99. Okay, so it came to 70,000 overall. Okay, but I've always made sure to really, really live as if I were still making my 2013, 2014 income. Now, when I've reached debt freedom through a combination of many different things, okay, just many, many different things, from the pandemic where we didn't have to pay student loans, from a inheritance that my parents gave me, not enough to make me rich and retire and all of that stuff, but it put a nice down payment for about 75% of what it cost me to move in here, plus decorating it and doing the remodel and all of that. So I had about a $50,000 mortgage on this place, plus the student loan temporary hold where I put money towards this place. Basically, for the last 9 years, I have done nothing but really work to get out of debt. Okay. Got the student loan cleared in 2022. And at the same time, while I'm clearing debt, to not live more than what I making in 2013, which is probably about 53,000 a year, 54,000 at best. Okay. 54,000 at best. I became completely debt free at the end of 2023. And, debt freedom, folks, I think it's a combination of a lot of things. It's a combination of some luck. It's a combination of of a whole lot of planning. I mean, just stick-to-itiveness, tons of planning. It's a combination of a gift. My parents gave me a gift. I don't consider inheritances to be luck. That's just highly inappropriate to me. But to me, that was a gift. Okay, it's like when someone gives you a birthday gift. I don't look at that as luck. I look at that as it's a gift. Somebody's giving it to you from the heart. Okay, it's a combination of all those things. So a little bit of financial luck. Oh man, I won $5 in the lottery. Okay, that to me is luck. All right, but when all those things, little, gifting and a little bit of luck and a whole lot of your own planning, when all those things are working in sync with each other, okay, when all those things are working in sync and you have no one sinking you, like we hear so often about, on the Dave Ramsey show, we so often hear about, someone's trying to save money and somebody else is running up with the bill in the background. Okay, been there, done that. All right. But when things are in control, you will actually begin to find that when you achieve debt freedom and the closer you get to it, it's like, what is this? It's kind of like a roller coaster. It starts out, roller coaster starts out really heavy with all your debt and bills, and you're trying to get your goals established, and you know what I mean? And you're doing a lot of mind change, because maybe you're going through some really difficult times like I did. All right. I think a lot of us can relate to divorce, broken relationships, family issues, yada, yada. Okay. And that roller coaster starts out real slow, but as you start to relieve yourself of the bills, and as you start to see, blue skies, in front of you, it's amazing how quickly the roller coaster starts to pick up speed. And then there comes a point, in that roller coaster where you just kind of stop at the top. Okay, that's almost the part before your stomach starts to sink, and you just stop and you survey everything you have done around you, and you're just in awe. And that stop at the top of the roller coaster, at the top of that hill on the roller coaster, for a second, you just stop and you just take everything in, and you're just like, I can't believe I can see this, and look at, I can see over there, and I can see here. But what we're looking at, what I look at in my world of finances, I can't believe I got this much achieved. I can't believe I made it to this point, because that roller coaster felt so heavy as I was trying to climb the hill. In fact, just trying to get the roller coaster started, okay, buckle in the seatbelt, strap in. I mean, it almost seemed like it was impossible to get it to move. But when you finally get to that roller coaster to the top of the hill, and you realize you have achieved debt freedom, and you realize that, wow, you really can make it to the top. And you just freeze there for a minute, and you just stare at everything around you. And then what does that roller coaster do afterwards? That's right. It shoots downhill, and it goes fast. And everything is just flying by you. And you're screaming, but you're not screaming in pain. It's not the scream, hopefully not, okay, as you were trying to climb that roller coaster and the dread and all of that stuff. But it's just that downhill coast, and it doesn't need any help. It needs no equipment. It just coasts straight on its own downhill. The one thing that achieving debt freedom has allowed me to see is once you have made a major chunk, okay, I'm talking a big chunk of your bills are gone. And these aren't bills that are going to come back. These are bills that are gone permanently, like mortgages and student loans. Okay. Hopefully, they won't come back. Okay. And if they do come back, they're definitely in control. But we're just going to talk in terms of, these bills aren't coming back. All right. It's amazing how all of a sudden that first step of debt freedom, or that first bill that's finally under control, the next bill is easier to control. And then that bill gets easier and easier. This is why Dave Ramsey talks about the debt snowball. Because even though it may not be the most efficient money way to get rid of debt, okay, people who have had debt recognize that sometimes getting rid of debt isn't about the money. It's simply about being able to acknowledge that, hey, this bill is gone. To me, it was like leasing a car. Leasing a car, I did it for 5.5 years, not because it was cheaper. It's because I needed the help. I needed the psychological help to get through some really tough times. I didn't need more commitment. I didn't need to be committed to a car. That makes sense. I could be committed to a lease. That was for 3 years. I could handle that at that time in my life, following my divorce and all that. But could I handle, hey, Carrie, you're going to keep this car now for the next 8, 10, 12 years? Absolutely not. I could not handle that at that time. When I finally achieved debt freedom in September 2023, and I was able to sweep up the last little bit of bills, just the very last. The only thing that I had left, really, was just my leased car. That's all I really had left. And I had other little bills and stuff, which I'll, just kind of rattle off on here for you. Okay. But let's take a look. And I'm going to put this up so you can see it, because I think it's easier for you to see it if I post it while I'm talking about it. Okay. Because I don't really want to hold it up to the camera because that's awkward. So I'll just find a spot on the camera here so you can see it. You will see that I had, not have, all right, as far as this car, I had a student loan at $400. I had a mortgage at $400. I had my Toyota Corolla, all right, which is $400. And I have an HOA, which is at $435. So between my student loan, my mortgage, my Toyota, and my HOA, that respectively came to about $1,635. So about $1,635. All right. Now, a lot of people probably want to know, why is it that I would get into debt for $26,000, and how the heck am I going to peel myself out when I'm, looking at $1,635 in bills right there? Well, really, really simple, folks. Before I bought this $26,000 car, I saved up just shy of 10,000 of it, just shy of 10,000. And those accounts will be released over the next couple of months because they're in accounts that I can't just reach in. I have to wait till they mature. So 10,000 was already saved. So on a $26,000 bill, I paid under manufacturer's MSRP, and the $26,000 is total. That's everything. Okay. So on that $26,000 bill, let's just take away, respectively 10,000. That leaves me about 16,000 left. This little school teacher is going to pay that car off in about 6 to 8 months. That's it. That's all I need. I was going to pay it off in 12 years and realized that was a ridiculous amount of time. 12 years. I was going to pay it off in 12 months. And then I realized that's a ridiculous amount of time. I don't need 12 months. I need about 8. And there is the possibility I could knock it down in 6. So I'm going to say between 6 to 8 months, this $26,000 car will be paid off. I am willing to make the sacrifices to get a less expensive car. Okay, the Toyota Corolla Hybrid is considered a very economical car. It's interesting because some people slam it. They go, it's just not fancy. I don't care about fancy. What I care about is I want a $26,000 car and I can pay it off in 8 months, because it only took me a few months to save 10 grand. That didn't take me that long. Basically, with the budget that I have as a single school teacher, I basically don't spend money. And I don't think it really dawned on me until I really wanted this car, just how little money I spend. I don't spend that much. I don't have a lot of fancy clothes. I don't go on a lot of fancy vacations. I definitely don't eat out fancy. So I'm going to be real kind of transparent here with you guys and just kind of show you what I, as a single school teacher, spend my money on and why it is I can make a $2,000 car payment a month. Now, did I set it up to be $2,000 in payments a month? No, because when you go and you buy a car at a dealership, you never say to them, hey, I'm going to pay off the car in 8 months. I said, no, I'll pay it off in 4 years. So, and because I have an 815 credit score, my interest is something like 4.9% is what I believe it is. I believe it's like 4.9%. And that's considered creme de la creme interest rate, folks, in today's market. That is like, and that's getting on with Southeast Toyota Finance, which can be very difficult, and they can be very choosy on the type of customers that they want. So that was me with an 815 credit score, 2 perfect payment leases in the same job for 18 years. All right. I mean, that is like, that is creme de la creme. And I actually called Southeast Toyota Finance and got that verified from them too. They're like, yeah, that's about as good as it gets in today's market. Okay. So let's take a look at what a single school teacher who is debt free, what the budget looks like. All right. First off, the reason I'm able to pay $2,000 a month is, well, I have bills that are very, very low. Also, I planned ahead that I was going to get this car. I started thinking about a year ago that I might want to buy a car. I started thinking of it pretty seriously. And so I started shoving money aside. But I wasn't sure if I was going to buy it. So I kind of like held on to about 10,000 and figured I'll just kind of keep it in accounts and let the accounts mature, which they will then over the next couple of months. So let's take a look at my budget and what it used to look like. Okay, this is what my budget used to look like. So I have here student loan, my mortgage. My student loan was $110,000 for those who might not know. So I had here my student loan, my mortgage, my Toyota lease. Okay, that was the lease that I had, and my HOA, which is $435, and that's the HOAs of 2024, as of this year, because they had to increase it a little bit. So that comes to $1,635. Now, if you look at the rest of the budget, okay, and it's not on the screen as I'm filming this, but I'll put it on the screen before I upload it so you can see it. You will notice that I have all my little stuff like I think most households do. Netflix, gym. So actually, I'm going to read it out loud because I know some people aren't looking at the screen. Netflix, $10. Gym, $25. Cell phone, $40. Internet, $65. My gas for my hybrid vehicle, $50. That gas is gonna plummet. I was spending probably about $100 on gas. It's gonna, I think I might even be lower than 50. But I always, I'd rather overestimate than underestimate. So gas, $50. My auto insurance, $175. Welcome to freaking Florida. We won't even get into it. Don't even get me started. No accidents, no tickets. Well, I had to go to traffic school, but that's looking like they're gonna not report that. But this is Florida insurance, so we won't even. It sucks. Okay, $175 for auto insurance for a perfect driver in her 50s. All right. And then also hair, toiletries. I put that down also as $200 a month miscellaneous. And then water and my electric, because I forgot that up above. So that section comes to $740. And then I also looked at my taxes. I pay about $800 a year in taxes. Yes, I live in a very small place. It was not an accident. I'm a school teacher, so I'm showing you a school teacher's budget, how a school teacher lives that is single and really wants to keep the bills low. All right. So and property taxes, I pay about $66 a month, which comes to about $800 a year. My condo insurance, and these are all 2024 figures, $550 a year. So that comes to about $45 a month. And identity theft insurance is about $10 a month. So that section is $121. So if I add up the 3 sections, which is the student loan, mortgage, Toyota, and my HOA, and then the second section is all the little bills, gym, Netflix, yada, yada. And then my property taxes and stuff. If I add up those 3 sections, A, B, and C, that comes to $2,496. That is my monthly cost of living, respectively. Okay. Now then, that $2,496 monthly cost. All right. That's including, okay, it includes, bills that I don't have anymore. I don't have a mortgage and I don't have a student loan. Okay. So I don't have those 2. So if I take away the mortgage and I take away the fact that I don't have a student loan anymore. All right. That is $800 right there. Because I don't have a mortgage and I don't have a student loan. So that's $800 right there. And guess what? When I'm done paying the for the car, there's another $500 that I won't have. I misbudgeted. I accidentally said it was $400. I'm so used to having a $400 lease payment. I budgeted it's $400, so forgive me, all right? But it's actually $500 because that's what my lease payment is supposed to be. But we'll just keep it $400 for simplicity, okay? I'm not going to quibble over $100 because I'm not writing this whole budget out again. So basically, I will go from a monthly cost of living of $2,496 to a monthly cost of living of $1,296. Now, of course, I have to eat. So let's put in $500 for some food. My monthly cost of living is approximately $1,796. That's it. Now you may say, but what about medical insurance and stuff? Very good question. I pay $200 a month towards my, insurance deductible and stuff. I have the FSA card, the flexible spending account that covers all contacts, chiropractor, dental, covers almost all of that in a year. Because I never ever see it in my check. Okay, I've never included it in my check because it's taken out before my check is even cut to me. I don't pay attention to that because I just never see it. So I ignore it because it's taken out before the check is even cut. So while I know it's taken out, I don't factor it into my budget because it's not something that's tangible on my paycheck. So I hope that makes sense. So without inundating you more than I already have on budget, okay, you will notice that my budget has nothing really fancy in it. I'm not a member of expensive clubs. You will notice that I don't have a wardrobe budget. My $200 miscellaneous that I have, I'm looking at my sheet here so I keep track of it. Okay. That's $200 a month for just whatever little incidentals come in. Okay. I want to buy a new dress for $40 at, Ross or Marshall's or TJ Maxx. There's $40 there. Okay. I need to get my hair done, which comes every other month. That comes to about $60. So $200 for me is a pretty generous incidental thing. It really is. It's pretty generous. I mean, that's $100, extra. So how am I able to pay $2,000 a month, more than $2,000 towards a car? Because it'll actually be more. Really simple. I live ridiculously underneath my means. This is how a school teacher making $62,000 a year can be in better shape than, and we've heard it, right, family? We've heard it on this channel. This is how a school teacher, a single school teacher with no one to rely on but myself, can be in better budgetary shape than someone who makes $200,000, and we've heard these calls, and they have no idea where the money's going. I know where my money's going. And, I told you that kind of that roller coaster analogy. This is downhill. I don't have to work. I'm not climbing a hill. I'm just riding. And here's the interesting thing about debt freedom. Even though I'm back in debt, so to speak, to, purchase this car, if anybody had told me, 9 years earlier, hey, Carrie, you're going to, pay off a $26,000 car in 8 months. And I think I can do it in less than 8 months, to be honest. Okay. 8 months is if I tighten up a little bit. I never believed them. To save 10,000 only took a few months, maybe about 5 months, maybe 6, 7, because I had a few more bills to pay at the time. So maybe 6, 7 months to save 10 grand. But now that 10 grand is saved, all right, it's about 16 left for the car. It is all sliding downhill easy. The one thing, if you're going to live on a budget, to achieve debt freedom, you have to be willing to control your emotions when it comes to money. And part of it is also the ability to control your ego. We want so much to impress people. It's interesting. I looked up the Toyota Corolla Hybrid to see what do people not like about the car. You know what's amazing? Do you know almost, and I mean, I looked up professional reviews. If you've watched this channel, I want to know the good, the bad. What's interesting about the Toyota Corolla Hybrid? What seemed to be the number one complaint people had? It wasn't fancy. That seemed to be the biggest complaint. Hey, the battery in the Toyota Corolla Hybrid, 10 years they warranty that battery. For 10 years. That's about the time I'm probably going to sell the car. That's 2 years before I retire. You start to realize that, when I read reviews, I want to know, are we looking at the mechanics of the vehicle? Or are we just looking at the ego and the flashiness? Lots of people don't like the Toyota Corolla Hybrid because it's just not flashy. They go, it's too conservative. It's a conservative looking sedan. You could have a Camry. Now, don't get me wrong. The Camry's gorgeous, especially the new Camrys. All right. But what helps keep me debt free really is I understand what the big goal is that I want with my funds. That's what helps keep me debt free. And do I feel like I'm suffering? If someone said, are you suffering, Carrie? Is this just horrible and awful? Heck no. Heck no. I can literally, 1,796 respectively is what I need with a $500 food budget for me to survive. That's what I need. And I can't take the bill down much more. I can take it down a little bit more. I guess I could cancel a gym membership and cancel Netflix. There's about $30 saved, okay? There's really not much more that I can take it down. But I know what the end result is that I want with my money. I enjoy saving it more at this age than I enjoy spending it. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I know I got a storage locker, okay, for my stuff, for my bedding and stuff. But that's like a hobby. Oh, I forgot the storage locker. Add on $50 a month for the storage locker. I'm sure we'll live. Again, that's why I have that $200 miscellaneous, because I was afraid I'd miss something out. So we can just put it in the $200 a month miscellaneous. But basically, if you want to achieve debt freedom, you have to be able to not let your ego do the talking and let your brain do the talking instead. I think something that really helps is knowing something that helps keep me on focus with my money. I know I can have something if I really, really want it. If I really wanted that Toyota Camry that was $45,000 and gorgeous, I could have had it. And I could have paid it off in about 2 years. In fact, I would have been better paying it off now than I was when I first purchased this condo. Because when I purchased this condo, my mortgage for this condo was as much money as the Camry. They were both $45,000 respectively. Now, if I could pay a $45,000 mortgage off in 2 years, I could certainly pay off a Camry that was $45,000 in 2.5 years. And paying off, and when I had the mortgage, I had a student loan at the time, okay? So it's keeping your eye on the prize. It's understanding why you spend money. It's understanding what do you want from that expenditure. And it's also understanding that you don't have to suffer as much as you think you have to suffer. I think some people think that to achieve debt freedom, it's just, that Dave Ramsey, it's beans and rice every single day. It depends. I could easily be living in a $200,000 condo. I could have easily chosen to drive a $45,000 car. I could have a wardrobe budget where I just spend, $1,000 every school year to impress. I choose not to do that because I would rather, there's something fun about being secretly financially stable. There's something kind of fun about that. Yeah, I know I look kind of poor. Yeah, I know I look kind of broke. Oh, she could only drive a Toyota Corolla Hybrid. Oh, she can only live in an 840 square foot condo. Oh, she has to wear her school clothes 3 times. I wear them for 3 years typically before I give them up. Okay? That's the pity party that people may think you're having. When in reality, you're going, you know what? I could buy that Camry if I want to, and I could pay it off in 2.5 years. Okay. If I wanted to sell this condo right now and I wanted to start pursuing a more expensive condo, I guarantee it to you I could do it. I have no debt. And that was the other reason that I guess before I close is why I really wanted why I was ready to buy a car. I realized that really if there was a debt still hanging over my head, if you want to call it as a debt, it's really I didn't own a car. Okay, yes, I leased it, and that's, That's not really a debt because, well, once you fulfill the contract of the lease, okay, you're out of debt. But really, to me, the last little bit that I had left to do to really go, I am done, okay, with owing other people, was I needed to own a vehicle. And owning this vehicle is really just the last and final thing. So this little, what is it? This Toyota Corolla hybrid, it will take me, on a low end, it will take me 6 months. Okay, that's if I eat beans and rice. On a normal end, it will take me 7 to 8 months. And I am ecstatic and I'm excited. And if anybody had even told me that I would have the ability to do this, I would have never believed it. And that's the other thing in closing about achieving debt freedom. You will be amazed that you will be able to do things in a time frame that once you would have thought was never possible. I want to go on a trip and it's going to take me $2,000 and I'm going to save for, a year, 2 years to get it. Yeah, I've been there, folks. A $2,000 trip could take a couple of years. You have to decide, are you willing to overspend on your budget so you can impress other people? Because I really think that's what a lot of overspending on budget is. I really do. Are you willing to do it to impress other people? And and I've discussed it on this channel, I had a student once ask me if I was poor. I've even had an adult tell me once that, well, you live in a condo, you don't live in a house. What difference does it make? What difference does it really, really make? I look at the housing market in Florida and what people are paying for insurance. My property taxes last year were $800. Okay. These things are not mistakes. The budget that I'm on today, that I live on today, none of this was a mistake. It was planned. Getting out of debt can't be a mistake. It can't just, it doesn't just kind of happen to you. And people say, well, yeah, but you could win the lottery. That just happens to you. Sure. And you want to tell me somebody who wins a lottery or comes into a great amount of inheritance or whatnot, if they haven't changed their mind frame and they haven't learned on how to deal with money, you want to bet how long that money's going to last. It's not what you make. It's not what you're given. It's what you can manage to keep. That's what it's about. It's what can you manage to keep. And I don't care how poor and broke I look to people. I really don't. All right. What I care about is when I go to bed at night, I know that I can live on about 40% of my take-home income.